Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for being here for Friday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy. Still a time change on July 14th. The Aviation Weather Unit webpage still scheduled to change, so take the time to look over the new links if you haven't already. Maps, PIREPs, TAFs, and the other forecasts, and then give us some feedback through the email address here as to what you think of the whole thing. Moving on to fire danger, still some extreme up here, upper Yukon Valley there, along Porcupine River, on down into the Fort Yukon area. Definitely today temperatures into the mid-80s, some locations up there. And still an area of high fire danger back to the west. Again, these are the two warmest areas in the state today, although pretty hot conditions all the way up to the North Slope. Still some high fire danger up there. And then southern Alaska, more spotty, central Copper River Basin, Susitna Valley, kind of the usual areas there. The southern Kuskokwim Valley, actually some thunderstorms occurring, lightning strikes earlier today or earlier in the afternoon here. That massive thunderstorms that came southward, redeveloped there on the west side of the Kuskokwim Mountains. Now shifting northward in the late afternoon to the northern Kuskokwim Valley and spreading up where the greatest heating occurred over the west central interior. On satellite imagery, yesterday we had low pressure off the southeast coast here, kind of dropping southwestward, circulating moisture, which continued throughout the day today. Kind of cloudy, showery conditions there both yesterday and today. This area here, that's what produced the big thunderstorms that came down, especially right over the Talkeetnas there, just north of Wasilla late afternoon into the evening, persisting, dropping southward through the night, now shifting back to the west. And then that area now lifting northward, still kind of in a northerly flow here over much of the south central areas and eastern, but push in from the west. This system really weakening as it comes onto the coast and inland there, kind of combining, will link up with this area of cloudiness. And on the chart today, we've got a trough right through here. The surface low did pull inland, very weak though on that center there, barely even, mostly just a trough, roughly a center in that area, but a trough extending southward, bringing showers. And again, the thunderstorms here redeveloping over the southern Kuskokwim Valley and late this afternoon. That's the most extensive area there. Pulling northward, but a lot of sunshine, warm temperatures 70s to mid 80s over a good portion of the interior, Copper River Basin, mid 70s there, McGrath and, McCarthy, Kennecott, Gulkana there. And northward, even the North Slope, temperatures rising into the 80s, and out toward the Arctic coast, seeing some mid 70s there. Cooler out along the coastline though, but most of the fog remaining off the coast. That'll be the case again tonight. Areas of smoke though over the interior coming in from western Canada there for the fires in that area. That's where the smoke's originating, being carried westward. Otherwise, look for a decrease in the shower conditions here for the Panhandle tonight. Kind of a break there. Some more stuff just down across the Queen Charlotte's with a weak 1,015 millibar low. Another weak low center there near Sitkinak. 1,014 millibars, and this thing up here really not kicking off too much there in the Kobuk Valley, but a trough persistent right through this area that came inland, keeping it mostly cloudy with scattered showers. Again, thunderstorms this evening, starting out, diminishing tonight, possibly lingering. Could see a couple over the eastern Alaska range, but generally becoming more stable. So less thunderstorm activity as usually the case rolling through the night. Nothing like last night. None expected here over southern Alaska. Just some isolated showers there over the maybe Resurrection Bay, where Seward picked up about 2/3 of an inch of rain in the last 24 hours ending at 4 p.m. Otherwise, Alyeska had about 1/3 of an inch there with showers and thunderstorms coming through the area. Now back to the west. But for tonight, low clouds, fog, areas of drizzle, light rain along the southwest coast possible, especially with the trough that's just offshore there. Really hit and miss there for the Pribilofs, kind of just a cloudy day there. As for the eastern Aleutians, could see a few breaks, but those breaks will be not too many and pretty far between. More moisture with that next front coming eastward there, spreading rain across Adak and eventually into Atka, becoming showery behind the front for Shemya. And the Arctic coast, this trough up there to the north, looks like it'll just kind of take off to the east and maybe clip the east side there with a little bit of moisture in the form of drizzle or very light rain, maybe some lower clouds to go along with that. Otherwise, for tomorrow, looking mostly sunny again, warm here over the north slope. Could see an increase in the clouds on the eastern Arctic coast over that higher pressure up over the Arctic, and kind of an increasing easterly flow there going on with, again, now tomorrow thunderstorms, again, eastern interior, back to the west, possibly all the way to the Noatak Valley. In the afternoon there could see some thunderstorm activity, but that all now north of the Alaska range in about the usual place you'd find it for this time of year, with just a chance of showers now developing over the western Alaska range areas. Chance of showers Kodiak, as well as the Aleutian Range, Bristol Bay. Mostly cloudy, partly to mostly scattered showers in the afternoon here, mainly over the mountainous terrain, Kuskokwim Mountains, Kilbrook, Auckland areas there, and showers on the increase again here over the southern southeast coast. So that moisture with this system spreading back northward and to the northwest. Otherwise, could be a partly sunny day for the central areas on up to Juneau. Maybe dry for Yakutat, kind of cloudy, but just a risk of a shower for the North Gulf Coast. Light variable winds, Prince William Sound, as well as the Gulf of Alaska here, and about the same across Kodiak Island, looking for very light wind conditions. Flow becoming more southwesterly out here over the Bering Sea, and turn that into a warm front there, and that'll spread some warm front type weather on up into the Pribilofs, on down, bearing in on the Nikolsky area. So look for some IFR to be on the increase throughout the day tomorrow in those areas, and the main cold front back to the west there for a band of light rain for the western Aleutians, but winds not all that significant with that feature up there. Maybe a little bit of an increase in the easterly winds there for the Arctic coast on the east side. Otherwise, flat area of high pressure here along the coast there, with that trough stuck right about in that position. And then the outlook for Sunday is a little more clearing back through here, with the showers scattered again in the afternoon over the mountainous terrain, Kenai Peninsula. Nothing too widespread, so at least a partly to mostly sunny day possible here for Cook Inlet, partly sunny in the Kenai Peninsula, and maybe some clearing for Prince William Sound out along the North Gulf Coast. Not looking bad. Afternoon thunderstorms again, central eastern interior there from about Eagle on down in toward the North Waitok area, maybe Nabesna. But convection less with each passing day, it looks like, even up over the interior there. More moisture, even more rainfall than what you'll see again tomorrow. Will be the drier of the 2 days for the southeast coast there. Otherwise, pretty moderate showers or maybe even continuous rain in the forecast here for the central southeast coast, possibly scattering out down to the south. But it looks cloudy and wet, at least for Sunday. Better conditions tomorrow. Scattered showers, as I mentioned here, south central Alaska. Staying dry up to the north there, so not a lot of change in the fire danger up in that area. Could see some thunderstorms develop along a narrow band of convection there along that trough from the southern Yukon Flats area back into the western Brooks Range. Maybe more, probably more low clouds and fog along the coast than what you've seen at least today there for the Arctic coast, with easterly winds, high pressure up to the north there just west of Banks Island, circulating that cooler air on down. Otherwise, a trough here brings considerable areas of low clouds, fog, drizzle, light rain up across the St. Lawrence Island area, right up into the Bering Straits, possibly as far east as Nome. Otherwise, a mostly cloudy day for the Norton Sound area, breaking out as you head over toward Caltech, probably back into at least the 70s again on Sunday. Southwest flow developing here, though, so that's going to carry this next front, which is pretty weak in the southern portion. Just some areas of light rain possible with that cold front. Maybe a little bit more, but not that much for the eastern Aleutians there. Definitely probably pulling it down to the IFR flying categories. Back to the northwest, that heading into the Pribilofs, probably won't see the bulk of that moisture in until Sunday evening, with scattered showers back to the west and winds west-southwesterly, 15 to maybe 25 miles an hour, and that's about it. Wind-wise, they're turning more southerly here along the west coast up through the Bering Strait. Temperatures this afternoon across the Panhandle, hard time reaching the 60s, although Metlakatla and Annette did reach 64 this afternoon. Stewart 61. Juneau at the International Airport hit 61 as well. Otherwise upper 50s, 57 at Sitka, Klawock, and a 59 at Skagway. Same thing at Yakutat. Lower 60s here, Cordova, Valdez at 62 there, downtown Valdez. 70s, mid 70s, McCarthy. 76 over at Tok, and then Fairbanks at 77. And back to the west into the mid 80s. That's Caltag at 85 this afternoon. I believe that's Quartz Creek on the Seward Peninsula hit 80 degrees. Haycock 84. And up in the, the warm spot, Beaver 86 degrees at 4 p.m. this afternoon. Otherwise Fort Yukon at 80 even. North Slope 83 degrees at Umiat up there at the Umiat Airfield. And that is Alpine at, or Anoka Flats at 80 degrees, 75 Dead Horse, only 60 at Kaktovik. Otherwise upper 50s and lower 60s for the remainder of the coastline up there. Almost 70, not quite, 68 at Kotzebue. And Nome 63 degrees, 77 there at McGrath. A line of thunderstorms just coming northward there into that area. From an east to west line of thunderstorms lifting northward there late this afternoon. Otherwise, less of that down to the south. A lot cooler, Cape Newnham 49, upper 50s for Bristol Bay, and upper 40s to mid 50s for the Aleutians, but Atka up to 59. And for the lows tonight, very mild again, upper 50s to lower 60s here through the north central interior from the upper Yukon Flats into the northern Kuskokwim Valley. Cooling back to the upper 40s here over the southwest and near 40 for the central Arctic coast. Otherwise, mostly in the 50s. Southern Alaska, upper 40s to lower 50s for the Panhandle. Highs for tomorrow back into the 70s to lower, possibly even mid 80s once again here over the interior. Warmest locations now will be here over the eastern areas with cooling back to the west, coming down into the lower 70s with even more cooling here over the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta. Looks like upper 50s. Struggling to reach 60 until you get over toward the mountains, and upper 50s everywhere else, mid to upper 50s for the Bering Sea, the Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula, although closer to 50 for the St. Paul, St. George area, as well as Gambell and Savunga. IFR definitely along the coast, inland areas here as well tonight, up into the Bering Strait, back to about the Pribilofs, a little bit of a break, more IFR farther to the west. IFR coming up along the east and southeast side of Kodiak Island with marginal VFR all the way up to the North Gulf Coast, and also for the southern slopes of the central Alaska Range back into the Kuskokwim Valley. VFR up to the north, and the Arctic coast for the most part staying pretty good. Definitely the North Slope VFR, and much of the coastline, exception being the central coast there to about Wainwright. And then for tomorrow afternoon, then the IFR and the increase there for the central and the east side, low clouds and fog increasing with VFR through the interior, lingering here on the south side of the central Alaska Range. Otherwise marginal VFR along and off the coast in the Gulf of Alaska, and it looks like improving conditions for the northern Panhandle. IFR from the Bering Strait southward there to Nunivak Island, more rolling in toward the Pribilofs, kind of in surges here, and another batch rolling into the far western Aleutians. Passes Anaktuvik VFR possibly becoming marginal with building clouds in the afternoon. That same forecast good for Addington as well, possibly becoming marginal. Otherwise the showers will be of the VFR varieties. Lake Clark and Merrill, good VFR tomorrow. Same forecast for rainy. Windy, marginal VFR, risk of a thunderstorm. And Isabel, VFR. Mentasta, VFR. Toneda, VFR as well. Portage starting out marginal, becoming VFR. Chilkoot and White, marginal VFR, improving to VFR late in the morning throughout the afternoon. Freezing levels, kind of a cool pocket here, but not all that low. Still 8,000 feet off the southwest coast. Otherwise, about 10,000 feet here across the interior. Back down to 8,000 feet there, a little cooler air mass over the Panhandle. 12,000 feet over the Aleutians. And icing, areas of mixed icing with the convection up here over the interior, depending on where it develops. Otherwise, Chance of some icing above 10,000 feet, Pribilof southward. Some more entering the western Bering and Aleutians. And then this area of moisture mostly into Canada could affect the southeast part of the southeast coast, like Stewart, maybe to Annette, and possibly as far north as Wrangell. But that's about it. So moving on to the jet stream, upper level low tomorrow just south of St. Lawrence Island. Pretty good wind flow around that, south-southeast 70 knots there right along the southwest coast. That's going to tend to cool it off in this area tomorrow. Otherwise, upper high pressure holding over the interior. One band westerlies to the north, the other one well to the south, not really affecting the state at all. And for 9,000 feet, pretty light winds, mostly from the west here through the interior, 5 to 10 knots, turning easterly, maybe up to 25 in the eastern Arctic coast, southwest 20 to 25, falling back to 15 there as you get over the northern Bering Sea. Very light westerly flow and across the panhandle, just 5 to 10 knots. And southwest 20 to 25 out here over the southwest Bering and western Aleutians. 3,000 feet, showing much the same pattern there, 25 to 35, kind of a narrow band right through here from the Pribilofs back down toward Atka, otherwise 15 to 25 out west. Light winds, 5 knots, could be up to 20 here. Some westerlies, possibly as high as 20 knots there across the Tanana Valley and White Mountains. And then that increasing easterly wind there along the Arctic coast, 15 to maybe 20 knots, lighter for the north slope, 5 to 15 out of the west for the Panhandle. Turbulence, not a whole lot to speak of with the light wind conditions. Maybe some light to isolated moderate chop, eastern Arctic coast and northeast Brooks Range, possibly for the Pribilofs with those increasing southwesterlies, and the same thing for the Aleutians, all below 4,000 feet. And after the break, I'll be back with a look at the ice edge and the marine forecasts.
It's important for us as pilots to recognize that there's a very delicate balance that exists in our recreation or our field of career or whatever else it may be. Are there some professional pilots in the crowd? Or pretty well all general aviation? Is there a mix? Who flies for a living? Couple? Anybody fly helicopters? Anybody a rotary wing pilot? Joel? Oh, sit up front so I don't have to talk loud. Okay? Yeah. No, I hate to make jokes about helicopter pilots. They have enough trouble, don't they? All those moving parts. Holy cow. Now, when I talk about the delicate balance that exists here, what I mean is you have a specific reason to go flying. That's the mission, if you would. There's a certain airplane that you're going to use. That's the machinery involved that you're going to use. It must fit the job, okay? 2 people in a 2-seat airplane. That fits the job, right? This used to be a big thing with agriculture spraying, crop spraying. If they're using the right machinery, it works pretty well. Super Cubs with wire cutters and so on aren't really the best way to go. Further to that, the aircraft must be in the proper environment, and the simplest example of that would be a VFR-equipped aircraft with respect to instruments and radios in an IFR environment. It is just not going to work. Now, further to that, the pilot. By statistics, they're going to say that's the weak part of the equation, if you would, because the majority of aircraft accidents are pilot error. Now, we don't use that term anymore. They got more sophisticated, and we say things like the pilot failed too, or whatever else. I don't like that particularly, because if you turn the scenario around, we'll find that 100% of the flights that ended successfully also had a pilot on board. So the accident investor may say that the pilot is the weakness in the equation. I say it's a strength, because you have the responsibility and the authority that goes with it to say this aircraft does not fit this environment, or I don't fit the environment with that aircraft or any combination thereof. You have to do that, okay? Now, I'm not going to talk about this anymore, because I think if you keep a picture of this in the back of your mind, that a lot of what I talk about a little later here will make a bit more sense. We have a poster that says that a superior pilot is one that uses superior judgment, blah, blah, blah. Again, you get the feeling that I don't necessarily need to have skill as well, but you do, okay? And I'll just make that point one more time, and that's the last time that I'll mention it. I have about 5 slides that define pilot judgment. There's probably as many definitions of judgment as there are people in this room. We think of it as common sense or horse sense or whatever else. All of those things are difficult to define. But I think that this one probably fits us as pilots better than any other that I've seen, so that's what I'm going to use. Pilot judgment is a process that infers that there's some action taking place, of recognizing all available information, emphasis on the word all, about those three things I just mentioned in the equation: the aircraft, ourselves, and the environment in which we're operating. Okay, you need to know everything you possibly can about those, followed by the rational evaluation of alternatives. Now, emphasis on the plural there, alternatives. That's to implement timely decisions, which is also very important, that will maximize safety. Now, that's quite a mouthful, all right? But there's three very important things to remember there: that we have a rational evaluation of alternatives, timely decision making, and maximum safety, not just come up with some sort of a decision based on a wild guess that might work sometimes. That just isn't good enough. So we're going to aim for the bullseye all the time. Pilot decision making, judgment, if you would, thus involves one's attitude towards risk taking. Attitude is a very, very important thing, and we're going to talk about attitudes as well this evening as we go. And more importantly, it's that pilot's ability to make decisions, and those decisions are based upon your level of knowledge, of skill, and of experience. Those three famous things, if you would. Now, again, like judgment, these are like three separate bank accounts. You can't trade one for the other. You have to maintain a healthy balance in each one, all right? Most accidents, now here I am, it seems like I'm dwelling on the negative, but that's the hard evidence. When an aircraft accident occurs, very seldom do we find that it was a lack of skill, okay? Most often pilots have the level of skill required. Knowledge may have been a little bit weak, or probably the combination of machine and environment wasn't just quite right. But you do have to maintain a balance. You can't trade one for the other. The person that's extremely skillful with the aircraft that doesn't understand the airspace structure or air traffic control clearances is not a complete professional pilot. Okay? And we are all supposed to be professionals.
Welcome back. Looking at today's sea ice analysis, the analysts took a fair amount away here off the eastern Arctic coast, and so this area from the central coast on eastward there toward Kaktovik really melting away pretty fast, and will continue for the next several days to do just that. So areas opening up, now carrying seas in the marine zones. And for the southeast coast, northwest 15 knots, but just west at 10 on the north coast. Southerlies 20, Lynn Canal, especially northern Lynn Canal, lighter, more south-southeast, but only 10 knots on down to the south, 2-foot seas. Outlook for Sunday, westerlies 10 to 15 knots, southwest at 10 on the extreme south coast, southeast 10 for Clarence Strait, turning south at 10 knots for Stevens Passage, and now only 15 knots for northern Lynn Canal. Prince William Sound, light winds variable to east at 10 knots, light variable winds for the North Gulf Coast turning easterly, picking up to 20 knots for the Barren Islands. Variable 10 knots east side of Kodiak, northeast 15 Shelikof Strait, and easterlies 15 for Kachemak Bay turn west, south of the Forelands, then southeast. These are only 10 knot winds, so you could call it light variable winds for Cook Inlet tomorrow, 2-foot seas. Then south to southwest 10 to 15 for the next day, but light variable winds, Barren Islands, Kachemak Bay, all around Kodiak, southwest 15 for the North Gulf Coast, south 10 Prince William Sound. Bristol Bay west at 10, and then variable winds here on the Bering Sea side, northwest 15 from Cape Sarachef to Castle Cape to Sitkinak, north 15. Sunday, southerlies 10 knots, Bristol Bay, south 15 for the peninsula, 4-foot seas, so pretty slight on the sea heights, even light and variable winds there on up towards Sitkinak. Aleutians, 15 to 20 knot winds from the south or southwest, southerlies at 20 for the central Aleutians, light southwest 15 farther to the west. And then for Sunday, those pick up to 20 knots, pretty uniform wind here for the western into the central Aleutians, turning a little more southerly, but not much difference, 15 to 20 knots there for Unalaska Island. And the southwest coast tomorrow, variable to southwest 10. Light winds for St. Lawrence Island, southwest 15, St. Matthew Island, northern Bering Sea southerlies at 15 for the Pribilofs, but these seas just 3 to 4 feet. And then for the Sunday outlook, they come up a little bit here due to the wind increase expected, with southerlies, small craft advisories now from Nunivak Island on the north side there in that part of the zone. Otherwise south 20 with 6-foot seas south of Nunivak Island, southeast 20 for the northern Bering Sea. Winds picking up a little for the Pribilofs, and southeast 15 for St. Lawrence Island. And for the eastern Arctic coast, north to northeast at 15. That'll help pull that lower cloud deck and fog condition in, leading to the IFR. Otherwise northeast at 20 from the central coast on down to about Point Lay, then dropping back to 10 knots, turning west at 10 for the southern Chukchi Sea. And then those turn southerly at 15 knots from Wales on up to Cape Beaufort, then abruptly turns east 20 knots there on the western coast, all the way to Demarcation Point. Pretty definitely a uniform wind pattern for the Arctic coast on Sunday, with those seas now in all the zones open 4 feet or 4 to 5 feet. With the outlook for tonight, staying nice up there and dry. Areas of smoke over the northern interior. Thunderstorms diminishing here where they're kicking off, mostly over the west central interior, northern Kuskokwim Valley, on up to the north a little ways, with showery, cooler conditions back to the southwest, with a couple of troughs here, and the upper level low off the coast, and mostly dry North Gulf Coast, south central Alaska. Panhandle, less in the way of showers. Rain spreading eastward with this front. Turns into a warm front tomorrow with a cold front farther to the west, spreading into the Pribilofs with IFR. Thunderstorms now up over the northern and central interior, but south of the Brooks Range. Otherwise, 70s to lower 80s once again, but cooler back to the southwest with more marine air coming in. And the Panhandle, not too bad, but increasing showers will lead to a pretty wet day down there on Sunday, with showers or rain covering just about the entire area. Dry, partly sunny, southern Alaska, isolated showers, and more rain pushing in from the west.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.